China's military activity around Taiwan is ramping up again. After nearly 2 weeks of unusual calm, Chinese warplanes have suddenly returned to the skies near the island. It comes just days ahead of a possible visit to China by US President Donald Trump. China has been steadily increasing military pressure on Taiwan for years, but when activity suddenly drops and then surges again like this, analysts start looking for signals. So what exactly is China trying to do here? Is the situation in the Taiwan Strait starting to escalate? We spoke to Professor Alessio Patalano to find out.
This is a significant exercise, part because it's one of the major exercises in the yearly planning of the PLA, and partly because, like most of the other major exercises, it is designed to give a sense of what are the type of military operations that the Chinese are looking at as likely operation that might see them being asked to conduct. And this is about very much some type of larger scale military activity designed to ensure air superiority across the straits, and then from there enable other military operations. So it is significant, although it is not out of the ordinary in the sense of the type of exercises that usually during this period of time the Chinese would put in place. This is not particularly larger or smaller. It's perfectly aligned with the type of activity that one would expect the PLA to put in place. The PLA flies regular missions for at least three different reasons. One is large sort of scale exercises like this one, then service single exercises, which are usually smaller scale. And then the third thing is for the conduct of what in East Asia is usually defined as grey zone activities, or we would call them in Europe sub-threshold military actions. These are actions by which the use of military force, the use of military power is designed to send a political message through military coercive activities. In the case of Taiwan, it is about testing their own defenses, testing the will of the Taiwanese people to accept or push back on the notion that Taiwan will go back to China as a province of the People's Republic of China. And in that sense, therefore, also testing the reliability, the credibility of some of the close allied partnerships and alliances. In this case, in particular, the support of the United States to Taiwan, in terms of ensuring that the island nation remains self-governed as it is today. The key question to ask is, are we already on a strategic timeline on a strategic warning type of scenario? What does that mean? Are we already looking at these activities as part of a long-term trend in trying to ensure that the Taiwanese will accept the inevitability of them being sort of reunited with China? There is a fair argument to suggest that that is already the case. So whether the PLA initial activities would start with the pursuit of air superiority, the real question is, perhaps are we already looking at activities that are taking place? So it wouldn't be the beginning, but it would be a further escalating of the use of military power to a next phase. If we buy into this idea that we are already some sort of a strategic warning timeline, then perhaps other steps would come first, other indicators would come first. Interdiction of shipping going in and out of particular items around shipping going in and out of Taiwan would probably be another important sign. Increasing activities of militias and fishing militias in particular around the straits would be another element. The sort of the activation of large-scale air campaigns, which would probably see also a combination of missile as well as drones, balloons, and fighter jets and other assets. This would mark a significant level of escalation. So it wouldn't be perhaps the first thing to see sort of initiation of activities, but it would be part of a build-up or an escalation of activities, but it would signal the shifting into a potentially much more dangerous, a much more sort of kinetically centric level of activities and operations that we've seen so far, or that we would have seen before.
Some analysts are asking whether the conflict with Iran could give China a window of opportunity around Taiwan.
It does create an opportunity for China to increase its use of military coercion to A, undermine the credibility of the United States, and B, psychologically put the Taiwanese into a very difficult situation whereby perhaps accepting a more negotiating and inviting tones vis-a-vis the PRC, the People's Republic of China, is a better strategy than relying on trying to push that militarily and rely on the United States in part to do so. So again, the opportunity more than in invasion is to what extent there is an opportunity here for intimidation and coercion to actually be more successful so that that invasion may not have to come. The Strait of Taiwan sees a considerably high level of military activities on a rather regular basis. And I would say since the inauguration of President Tsai Ing-wen in 2020, we've seen a significant increase in the normalization of regular military activities around the Strait. As a result of that, is the current situation particularly more dangerous than what we've seen in the last few years? No, it is not. However, the rest of the world and what is happening around the world has changed. So the real point to explore a bit more is to what extent events in other parts of the world that are drawing the attention of key military players like the United States away from the Straits of Taiwan might create an opportunity to try to seize and normalize even higher level of uses of military coercion. And as a result of that, see a changing in the balance of the Straits of Taiwan. This is a question that is difficult to ask at the moment, to answer at the moment, but certainly one that will be absolutely of primary significance to focus on in the months running up to the summer when the next large military exercise is scheduled to take place in China.
We're also seeing reports of large formations of Chinese fishing vessels operating near Taiwan. Some analysts say these boats are part of China's maritime militia.
Fishing militias, and in particular sort of gray zone activities led by constabulary and paramilitary forces. So whether it is the Chinese Coast Guard or indeed the Chinese fishing militia, it's a trademark. It's a hallmark of China's behavior, particularly in the conduct of sub-threshold coercive activities. They've done that for more than a decade and a half in the East China Sea. They've been doing this in the South China Sea for a similar amount of time, and we've seen this happening increasingly more also around the Straits of Taiwan. There is an element of attribution, challenge, to identify whether there is a standard fishing boat or something else. It is also, it makes it harder to push back. So there is a tendency to use this type of assets because they allow to push coercion while making it more complicated to others to push back. So what we're looking at, it's a more systematic use of a method of sending coercive messaging that has been used already in other theaters. It was less the case in the Straits of Taiwan, but it's definitely becoming much more sort of front and center. But it also suggests something about the fact that if tensions were ever to escalate to the next level up, interdiction activities, whether through the Chinese Coast Guard or indeed through militias, are likely to become more likely to take place. And as a result, seeing these activities taking place not only has a coercive element in itself, but is also a way of rehearsing potential actual uses in a greater sort of moment of crisis.